Alright, so now we're going to get into the navbar of Bootstrap 4. Now things have changed since Bootstrap 3 and even since Bootstrap 4 Alpha. So what we have here to start off with is a simple navbar. We have a nav tag. Then inside there I have a div because I want to add a container inside the navbar. Notice that in this file we don't have the container around our navbars because I want them to go all the way across. Okay, instead I want the container in each navbar. Then we just have the branding, so a link with some text. Then we have the UL. Alright, so let's start off by giving this nav some classes. So we're going to give it a class of navbar, and then we're going to give it a class of navbar-expand dash, and then you can put your size here. Now what this means is that what breakpoint do you want it to basically go into responsive mode. So usually what I would do is SM because I want it to be a standard navbar until we get to the small breakpoint. But you could also do MD or LG or even XL, which I think would just always keep it in collapsed mode, but we're going to keep it at SM. Now in Bootstrap 4 Alpha, this was actually toggleable, okay, which I really didn't like writing out anyway, so I'm kind of glad they changed that. But toggleable is now expand, okay. And then we're also going to add a class of navbar-light, which is a class you want to use to keep your text dark, because if your navbar is light, you want your text dark, which is a little confusing. But what we'll do here is we're going to add another class of BG light. Okay, remember when we went over the colors, BG light will give it a gray background. So let's save that, and now you can see that it has a gray background. Now this div here, I'm actually just going to put in a container and save that. And now you can see that we have the links over here, the branding is over here. So for the branding, we want to give this a class of navbar brand. Okay, that'll actually make it into a, not blue anymore like these links. And then the UL here, we're going to turn this into navbar-nav and save. Okay, and that's going to align that's going to make them inline. Now each item here, each list item is also going to have a class of nav-item. Alright, so let's go ahead and just copy that. We'll put that on each one here. And then we'll save it. Okay, and then each link is going to have a class of nav-link. So we'll go ahead and grab that, put that on each A tag, and we'll save. And there we go. Now we have our navbar. Okay, now since we did expand SM, let's go ahead and expand. So when we make it smaller, when it hits SM, it's going to go into this mode, okay, which is responsive. Okay, so even if it's on a mobile device, this still works. Now, you may not want this though. You may want a hamburger menu or a collapsible button so that these disappear and you have a little button you can click which shows a drop down. So for that, we're going to do that next. I'm going to just copy what we just did, this whole nav, and go down here and paste it in right here. And to make this into a responsive toggle navbar, we need to add a button. So we're going to put a button right under the brand. So let's say button, and I'm going to give this button a class of navbar-toggler. Okay, and inside the button here, let's put a span, and that's going to have a class of navbar-toggler icon. Okay, and this button is also going to have another attribute called data toggle. So we're going to say data-toggle, and we're actually going to set that to collapse. And then it needs another attribute called data target, and you can set that to whatever you want. I'm going to say ID, so hash navbar nav, like that. Alright, now we need to actually wrap this UL in a div. So we'll put a div here. We want to end it right here. And then for this div, we want to add a class of collapse and then we want to also give it a class of navbar dash collapse, and then we need to give it an ID of whatever we put right here, which is navbar nav. It needs to know which menu to actually open. Alright, so let's go ahead and save that. And then what we'll do is resize. Actually, you know what? Let's push this down a little. So I'm just going to give this first navbar, I'm going to add in the class of MB for margin bottom. We'll say MB3. That'll push it down. Alright, we'll do the same thing here, MB3. Okay. Now, if I resize our window, notice the second one, we get this button, and if we click it, now we have this drop down. So a couple extra steps to do this from this. Alright, now next thing I want to do is just add a form to our navbar. So I'm going to copy this whole one we just did with the responsive toggle, and we'll put that right here. And you know what, I'm just going to make this bigger so you guys can see it better. Alright, so navbar with form, and I'm going to go right under the UL, and we're going to put in a form, and we're going to give it a class of form-inline, and then I'm also going to give it a class of my-2, okay, which is going to be margin on the y-axis, so it's going to be margin top and bottom. And then we're going to do also a class of my-lg-0, so it's 0 on large screens. Alright, so there's our form. We don't need an action here. I'll just get rid of that. And then inside of our form, let's put an input with the class of form control. Okay, and then we're going to also have a class of mr-sm-2, which is going to be margin right 2 on small screens. Okay, and then that's going to have an input of text. Let's go ahead and give it a placeholder as well. We'll say placeholder, we'll just say search. And then let's put a button right below it. And we're going to give this button a class of btn, and then let's do an outline button. So btn outline dash success, which will make it green. And then we're going to do margin top and bottom 2, and then on small screens no margin. So we'll do my-sm-0. So that's our button, and then we'll just put in search. So let's save that, and now we have our search form. Now if you want to align things over, we just have to use a margin auto class. So we're going to go on the UL here, and we're just going to add margin right dash auto, save, and that's going to push it over to the side. Alright. So now let's do a drop down. Okay, so for the drop down, I'm going to copy the first one we did, which is just the simple nav bar. So we'll grab that, put it right in here. Okay, and then what we'll do is go to, let's say, actually we'll just put a new link, a new item in here. So we'll put an li, and it's going to have a class of nav item just like the rest of them. It's also going to have a class of drop down. Alright, and then in here we'll have an a tag. It's going to have a class of nav link like the rest of them. It's also going to have a class of drop down dash toggle. Whoops. Okay, and then this is going to have an attribute of data toggle. Okay, it works just like the other drop downs that we've done. So data toggle will be drop down, and inside here, that's for the text, we'll just say drop down, but you can put whatever you want. And then right under that, we'll have our div, and this div will have a class of drop down menu dash menu. And we'll have our links with the class of drop down dash item. Okay, so we'll say link 1. Let's just copy this. We'll say link 1, link 2, link 3, and let's save. And now you can see right here we have a drop down with our links. It should be 3. Alright, so it's as easy as that. Now we also have a variety of colors we can use, so what I'm going to do is copy again the simple nav bar right here, and we're going to go down to colors, paste that in. So we already saw the BG light, we also have BG dark, save that. Now this is what I mean about navbar light and dark. So since it's dark background, we want to change this to navbar dark, which will give us a lighter text. All right, so let's go ahead and copy this whole thing, and let's do we can say BG primary, and then we'll paste in another one. We'll do BG success, save that. Okay, so you can see we can do any of the context colors. If we wanted a red navbar, we could do BG danger, and there we go. All right, so those are the different nav bars. Now let's go into the nav class. So we can create simpler menus than, you know, the main nav bar if we want. So down here, notice that I have these in a container because I want all of this constrained. I didn't want the nav bars constrained. So this UL here, we're going to give it a class of nav and save that. And notice that right away, it's going to make it into an inline. Let me just make this smaller. Okay, so, whoops. All right, so UL class nav makes it inline. Now the LIs and the A tags are actually going to have the same classes of as the nav bar. So we have nav item, and then the A tags will have nav link. So we'll just go ahead and do that, and we'll grab the class and save, and there we go. So now we have a nav, not a nav bar. There's no background or anything like that, but it's just a simple menu. Now if you want to highlight an active item, so we could give a link here, the class of active. Now if I save that, it's not going to do anything by default, but if we add a class up here of nav-pills and save, it'll actually give it this background. I guess this is a nav pill. All right, now we can also do different alignments if we wanted this to be aligned in the middle. Let's just grab this whole thing, and we'll go ahead and paste that in, and we could just give this a class of justify-content-center, and you can see now that's that is now aligned to the center. If we wanted to align it to the right, we could say justify content end. Okay, and we're going to get into all this alignment stuff later as well. We could also do vertical. So again, we'll just paste this in, and we're going to change, or we're going to add a class of flex column, and that'll make it vertical. Okay, which is pretty cool. We can also do a fill. So if we go ahead and paste this in, and let's say nav fill, like that, and save, it's going to basically give it an even width across the whole thing. We can also do drop downs. So if we paste that in, let's see, we'll do a nav fill, and then let's just add a drop down. We'll go right here and we'll say li nav item, also drop down, and we'll put an A with a class of nav link, and also drop down toggle. Okay, that needs an extra attribute called data toggle, and we'll set that to drop down. Okay, and then under the link, we're going to have a div with the class of drop down menu. Okay, and then we'll have our links. So this will be drop down dash item. So you can see the drop downs are the same no matter what. No matter if they're in on a button, or no matter if they're on a nav bar or a regular nav like this, doesn't matter. So we'll save that, and now we have a drop down. All right, so that's it for nav bars and navs. In the next video, we're going to get into list groups and badges.